Let's take the sales data 2016 working file and look at a feature of pivot charts that really blows away normal charts, because this cannot be done in a normal chart. Let's click on the chart to select it, and that also brings up the pivot chart fields on the right. I'm going to make a slight change to this chart by dragging out the country and moving the years into the category axis, so the x-axis, and let's remove the date out of the series. That way we have a breakdown for each year by quarter. That way we can spot the fourth quarter 2010. Now the bit that cannot be done in a normal chart is if I bring the country into this section here, the filter section. Now we know on a pivot table that that section provides a little filter at the top of the table. Well, it does exactly the same with the chart. Over in the top left I have country. Click country. I can then choose one of the countries to filter this chart by. So I might choose United States, for example. And then this chart now only shows me the sales by year, broken down by quarter, for the United States. Go back in, choose perhaps Bangladesh. Okay, and they only had sales in one quarter in 2011. Go back in, let's try United Kingdom. 2009-2010, broken down for 3 of the quarters in 2009 and all of the quarters in 2010. As well as the ability to filter by a single country, within this drop list for the country, I can choose select multiple items, and that way I can just place ticks against multiple countries. And if I say OK, I then see the result for each of those countries, which is great and a fantastic tool. However, what I cannot do once I'm looking at the chart is determine which countries I am previewing. Now, I can give you a result here that will help work, but it still won't help when you choose multiple countries. Let's go back and choose a single country from my little drop list. Let's turn them all on and then all off. That's the easiest way of turning the ticks off. And let's stick with the United Kingdom. Now, if I click off the chart, everything disappears as far as the pivot chart options are concerned over here, but I can't tell I'm just looking at United Kingdom. However, if I go back to the table tab, I can tell I'm looking at United Kingdom because it's displayed on the screen. So what I'm looking for is a way of displaying that same option that I see there on my chart. Or we can cheat. Let's click on the chart and go to the Format sub-ribbon, and I'm going to display a text box. So I choose this text box tool here, place it wherever I feel fit, probably here. And then what I can do with this text box is click in the formula bar, type an equals, click on the table sheet, click on the cell B1, which is displaying the filtered country, and then return to accept that formula. And hey presto, the text box on the chart says United Kingdom. If I select that text box and perhaps move it into a more prominent position, maybe even center align the text, maybe even make it bold in a different color. Then when I go back to country and choose a different country, okay, finally I've got multiple items selected. That's the drawback. With multiple items, it just says multiple items. But if I make sure I select a single country, it gives me the single country in that text box. Turn off Australia, turn back on France. Okay, it says France, and I know I'm then looking at France's data. So when I click away to deselect the chart field options, I see my chart. Now there is one other thing that potentially you might want to do with a pivot chart, which is effectively to hide these pivot chart giveaways. Now those are controlled on the pivot chart tools Analyze sub-ribbon. Here we see field buttons. If I click the drop down, these are all now visible on my chart. If I choose hide all, for example, then they all disappear. So when I click away, I do not see the little filter option at the top left for the country, the group above the legend, and the group on the axis. This now looks like a normal Excel chart. It doesn't look like a pivot chart. And the only way I would know is to click back on for the field list to appear, and then I can turn back on these field buttons, should I so wish, by removing the hide all, and then turning on or off those that I don't want anymore. It's just like a little extra option that you might want to do before you send someone the pivot chart, because those extra blocks might just serve to confuse people slightly, for those people that don't understand a pivot chart. But you can have them back by removing the hide all, and then they come back, allowing you to carry out filtering, allowing you to filter by the quarters over here, filter by the years down here. All those options are available to you just as if this were a pivot table. Well, effectively the pivot chart is really a pivot table, but in color and pretty, and depending on the chart layout you've chosen. Everything else works the same. The drop arrows from here work the same. Filtering for the page works the same. So we've been a little bit extra clever here by adding in a text box that is linked to the filter from the table, so we know which country we're filtering by. The drawback is when it's multiple countries, it just says multiple items, but other than that, it's an excellent little way of seeing which country we're currently looking at, which filter effectively is in place.